Across history, ordinary people have fallen under the spell of extraordinary leaders. What begins as faith and hope can twist into control, violence, and death. From jungles and deserts to quiet suburbs and hidden temples, cults have left behind trails of fire, blood, and silence. Each one promises salvation, but delivers terror. These are the most dangerous cults the world has ever known. The People's Temple, Jonestown, 1978. It's late afternoon in the sweltering jungles of Guyana. A heavy silence hangs in the air, broken only by the sound of hundreds of voices chanting in unison. The rhythm is hypnotic, unsettling, almost like a spell. Then suddenly, silence. The jungle swallows the sound whole. Hours later, investigators arrive. They're met with a scene no one can forget. Bodies scattered across the compound floor, men, women, and children lying side by side. Over 900 of them. Plastic cups still clutched in their hands. But how did it come to this? Jim Jones didn't begin as a monster. In the 1950s America, he preached racial equality at a time when segregation was still law in many states. He adopted children of different races, calling it his rainbow family. Thousands followed him, convinced he was the one preacher who truly practiced what he preached. Yet behind the warm sermons was a man addicted to control. Jones demanded loyalty, obedience, and sacrifice. His church grew into an empire. Politicians courted him. Ordinary people gave him their savings, their homes, their lives. How did a man who once promised love and justice convince 900 people to swallow poison at his command? In 1977, Jones faced mounting pressure, allegations of abuse, financial fraud, even kidnapping. He told his followers the U.S. was against them, that only in Guyana could they live free. And so they moved en masse to the jungle. They called it Jonestown. From the outside, it looked like utopia. Simple living, farming, community. But the reality was grimmer. Days began with loudspeakers blasting Jones's sermons. Nights ended with white nights, drills in which followers were told the end was near and they must be ready to die. Food was scarce. Punishments were public. Escape was impossible. Guards watched the perimeter, and beyond lay miles of hostile jungle. Why did the visit of a single U.S. congressman trigger one of the deadliest mass suicides in history? That congressman was Leo Ryan. In November 1978, he arrived with journalists to investigate claims of abuse. At first, the visit seemed cordial. Smiles, music, rehearsed speeches about paradise. But then secretly, a few members slipped Ryan notes, begging for rescue. The mask cracked. The next day, as Ryan prepared to leave with defectors, gunmen from Jonestown ambushed him on the airstrip. The congressman and 4 others were killed. Back in the compound, Jim Jones declared the end had come. America would invade, he warned, and slaughter them all. There was only one solution: revolutionary suicide. The recording still exists. Known as the death tape, it captures Jones's voice, calm and commanding, as he orders the mothers to bring their children forward. Cyanide-laced flavor aid is poured into cups. Babies cry. Some resist, but armed guards ensure compliance. Jones's words echo, "We didn't commit suicide. We committed an act of revolutionary suicide, protesting the conditions of an inhumane world." One by one they drink. One by one they fall. By nightfall, Jonestown is silent forever. Over 900 lives lost. One of the largest mass suicides in modern history. But the haunting question remains: was it truly suicide or mass murder orchestrated by a single man's voice? Aum Shinrikyo, Japan, 1980s to 1990s. It's rush hour in Tokyo, March 20th, 1995. Thousands pour into subway stations, their footsteps echoing across tiled floors. The trains are packed, commuters press shoulder to shoulder. Nothing seems unusual until it begins. A man quietly drops a plastic bag onto the floor of a train car. Another punctures his package with an umbrella tip. A faint liquid begins to seep out. Seconds later, passengers cough, eyes burning, their lungs clawing for air. Then panic, screams, collapse, bodies writhing on the floor. An invisible poison has been unleashed. The attack paralyzes the city. 13 die, thousands are injured. And the question spreads faster than the gas itself. Who could do this? The answer traces back to one man, Shoko Asahara. Born nearly blind, Asahara grew up isolated, ridiculed, desperate to stand out. By the 1980s, he reinvented himself as a guru, mixing yoga, Buddhism, and apocalyptic prophecy. He claimed to have reached enlightenment, to levitate, even to see the end of the world. His charisma was magnetic, but what made his cult different was who joined. Not just the desperate or lonely, but the best and brightest. Doctors, engineers, scientists, graduates from Japan's elite universities. They gave up careers and families to follow him. Why would highly educated people, brilliant minds trained in medicine and science, devote themselves to building laboratories for chemical and biological weapons? Inside the cult, devotion turned into obsession. Asahara preached of an impending apocalypse, nuclear war, divine judgment, humanity's annihilation. He declared only Aum Shinrikyo would survive, and to ensure survival, they needed weapons. The cult poured millions into research. Laboratories hummed with activity, members in lab coats cultivating anthrax spores, refining VX nerve agent, producing sarin gas. They built weapons stockpiles more advanced than anything ever seen in a religious group. When police finally raided these compounds, what they discovered shocked the world. But before that moment, Japan would be forced to confront terror in its own subway tunnels. In early 1995, Asahara's paranoia peaked. He believed government raids were imminent. To strike first, and perhaps spark the apocalypse, he ordered the sarin gas attack on Tokyo's subway system. The plan was chillingly simple. Cult members boarded trains at rush hour carrying plastic bags of liquid sarin wrapped in newspapers. At precise stops, they dropped them, punctured the bags, and walked away. Within minutes, commuters collapsed. Train lines shut down. Hospitals overflowed. The city's heart stopped beating. When police stormed Aum's compounds days later, the scale of their operation was revealed. They found sarin production facilities, containers of deadly VX gas, evidence of anthrax cultivation, stockpiles of weapons that could have killed not just hundreds, but tens of thousands. The truth was undeniable. A religious cult had come closer than anyone in modern history to unleashing mass destruction on a civilian population. The Tokyo subway attack remains one of the deadliest acts of domestic terrorism in Japan. For many, it shattered the illusion of safety in everyday life. That morning, commuters simply going to work became victims of an invisible weapon. A weapon born not from a government, but from blind faith in a false prophet. The question still lingers: how did thousands of intelligent, educated people surrender their lives, and nearly the lives of millions, to the vision of one man? Heaven's Gate, USA, 1970s to 1997. It's March 1997, Rancho Santa Fe, California. Police push open the door of a quiet suburban mansion. What they find inside stops them cold. 39 bodies lying neatly in bunk beds, each dressed the same: black shirts, sweatpants, and brand new Nike sneakers. A purple shroud carefully draped across their faces. By their bedsides, neatly packed bags, identification cards, and a calm, eerie order to it all. It looks less like chaos and more like preparation. But for what? To answer, we go back 2 decades. Marshall Applewhite was once a music teacher, charismatic but unstable, plagued by visions and a sense of destiny. He met Bonnie Nettles, a nurse who shared his fascination with prophecy and extraterrestrials. Together, they formed the belief that they were not human at all, but higher beings sent on a mission to Earth. They promised salvation not in heaven, but in space. A spacecraft awaited them, they said, beyond the stars. Earth was doomed, but a chosen few could escape to what they called the next level. Their teachings attracted followers from across the U.S. People left behind families, careers, even their own names, taking on new identities as crew members of a cosmic mission. How could 2 ordinary people convince others to give up everything they had, just for the promise of a spaceship trailing in the void? By the mid-1990s, their numbers had dwindled, but their faith had hardened. Then came a sign. In 1997, astronomers announced the Hale-Bopp comet was passing close to Earth. For most, it was a once-in-a-lifetime spectacle. For Heaven's Gate, it was destiny. Applewhite declared the comet was escorted by a spacecraft, their spacecraft, ready to take them home. The mansion in Rancho Santa Fe became their launch pad. They recorded farewell messages, calm and smiling, each speaking about the great journey ahead. They spoke of leaving behind their human bodies, mere vehicles, and boarding the ship that would carry them to eternity. Why did they all wear the same Nike sneakers? And what did those haunting farewell tapes reveal about the mindset of people willingly preparing for their own deaths? The ritual was precise. Over 3 days, groups consumed a lethal mix of barbiturates and vodka, sealing the act with plastic bags placed over their heads. Once one group had passed, the next followed, covering the faces of the dead with purple cloths, a symbolic uniform for the voyage. When authorities arrived, they found the largest UFO-related suicide in history. 39 people, ranging from young adults to those in their 60s, who believed without question that their souls would board a ship hidden in the comet's tail. The sight shocked the world. Newspapers splashed the photographs of identical sneakers and purple shrouds across front pages. Commentators struggled to answer the question, how could so many intelligent people fall for such a belief? But for the members of Heaven's Gate, there was no doubt. To them, this was not death. It was ascension. In their final message, they left one haunting line: "We are happily prepared to exit this world." And with that, they did. Branch Davidians, Waco, Texas, 1993. April 19, 1993. A column of thick black smoke rises into the Texas sky. The Branch Davidian compound outside Waco is engulfed in flames. Inside, 76 men, women, and children are trapped. The fire spreads quickly, wooden beams collapsing as gunfire pops in the background. When the smoke clears, nothing is left but ashes and unanswered questions. Who was really responsible? The story begins years earlier. His name was Vernon Howell, but the world would come to know him as David Koresh. He wasn't a conventional preacher. A failed rock musician, long hair and a guitar slung over his shoulder, Koresh blended charisma with scripture. He proclaimed himself the Lamb of God, the only man capable of unlocking the sealed prophecies of the Bible's book of Revelation. Followers came in droves: farmers, families, professionals. They sold possessions, cut ties, and moved into the compound at Mount Carmel. There, Koresh's word was law. How did one man convince an entire flock to surrender their wives, their children, even their weapons, believing it was all in service of God's plan? Life inside was tightly controlled. Koresh claimed exclusive rights to the women, declaring marriages void and children reassigned to him. Men accepted it as a divine test. Women bore his children. Dissent was punished with humiliation or exile. But Koresh's control wasn't just spiritual, it was military. The compound stockpiled rifles, grenades, and ammunition. To the outside world, it looked less like a church and more like a fortress. Federal authorities took notice. Reports of child abuse and illegal weapons piled up. By 1993, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF, prepared to act. February 28, 1993. Hundreds of ATF agents surrounded the compound. A raid was launched, but Koresh and his followers were ready. Gunfire erupted. 4 federal agents were killed, along with several Davidians. What was supposed to be a quick operation spiraled into a siege. For the next 51 days, Mount Carmel became the center of the world's attention. News cameras broadcast the standoff live. Negotiators pleaded with Koresh to release children. Some were freed, but most stayed. Inside, Koresh recorded tapes, quoting scripture and warning of the apocalypse. When the end finally came, was it the Davidians who lit the flames, or the government, desperate to end the standoff? On April 19th, the FBI launched their final assault. Tanks rolled in, pumping tear gas into the buildings. The plan was to flush people out. Instead, chaos unfolded. Flames erupted. Within minutes, the entire compound was an inferno. Many inside perished from smoke and fire. Others were found with gunshot wounds. Whether suicide, mercy killings, or execution remains disputed. David Koresh himself died of a gunshot to the head. The government insisted the Davidians set the fires themselves. Survivors claimed tanks knocked over lanterns or that incendiary devices were used. To this day, the truth remains murky. 76 lives lost, a religious sect reduced to ashes, and an America deeply divided, some seeing the Davidians as dangerous fanatics, others as victims of government overreach. The Waco tragedy endures as one of the most infamous and controversial sieges in U.S. history, a clash between faith and authority, ending not with resolution, but with fire. Order of the Solar Temple, 1980s to 1990s. It is October 1994, in the quiet Swiss village of Sherry. Police step into a farmhouse expecting routine checks. Instead, they are greeted by silence, then the acrid stench of smoke. Down in the cellar, their flashlights sweep across a chilling sight. Dozens of bodies arranged in a near-perfect circle. Many are dressed in ceremonial robes, their arms positioned as if in ritual. Some are charred, others bear bullet wounds. It looks less like a crime scene and more like the aftermath of a mass sacrifice. The Order of the Solar Temple was no fringe street sect. It was born from wealth and influence. Founded in the 1980s by Joseph de Mombro, a French occultist, and Luc Jouret, a Belgian doctor turned New Age guru, it blended the mysticism of the medieval Knights Templar with astrology, apocalypse, and promises of cosmic salvation. Members believed they were chosen, an elect few destined to survive the coming end of the world and ascend to the star Sirius. But what set the order apart was not only its bizarre mythology, it was the people it attracted. Doctors, engineers, civil servants, even politicians joined. From the outside, they lived respectable lives. Behind closed doors, they rehearsed rituals, swore oaths, and prepared for the end. Why did men and women of power and influence, educated, wealthy, respected, secretly commit themselves to a cult that demanded absolute obedience? For years, de Mombro orchestrated the order like a stage play. He staged apparitions of glowing figures, convinced members they were in the presence of cosmic masters, and declared himself the ultimate interpreter of their will. Jouret preached apocalypse, warning that betrayal or hesitation would bring punishment from above. As the 1990s approached, paranoia grew. The leaders feared exposure, believed enemies were everywhere, and warned that only through transit, a ritual passage through death, could the faithful ascend to the stars. But when investigators later examined the dead, they found something disturbing. Some had been shot in the head before being set on fire. Were they willing participants or victims of cold-blooded execution? The first wave came in 1994. In Switzerland and Canada, over 50 bodies were discovered across multiple sites, many arranged in ritual patterns. Their deaths synchronized like a grim performance. Official statements called them collective suicides, but bullet holes, restraints, and accelerants suggested something darker. The deaths of de Mombro, Jouret, and many other members effectively led to the disbandment of the core group. In 1995, more deaths followed in France. Again, bodies were found charred, arranged in ceremonial formation. Authorities struggled to piece together whether these were suicides, murders, or a mix of both. Survivors described leaders tightening their grip, warning of cosmic judgment, and silencing dissent through intimidation, or worse. By 1997, the death toll had climbed to nearly 74 across 3 countries. Families destroyed, communities shaken, police baffled. The order had staged multiple departures to Sirius, each cloaked in ritual, each leaving behind more questions than answers. Were these people true believers, willing to die for a cosmic fantasy? Or were they trapped, manipulated, and executed by the very leaders they trusted? The Order of the Solar Temple remains one of the most mysterious cult tragedies in modern history. A brotherhood of elites turned into a death machine, and at the heart of it, a chilling paradox, a promise of eternal light, delivered through fire, bullets, and ash. Movement for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments of God, Uganda, 2000. March 17th, the village of Kanungu, Uganda. A church packed with worshippers erupts into flames. Windows are barred, doors sealed shut. Inside, hundreds of men, women, and children scream for escape as fire consumes the wooden walls. Within minutes, the roof collapses. When it is over, more than 500 bodies lie in the ashes. It is one of the deadliest cult disasters in history. But how did it begin? The movement for the restoration of the Ten Commandments of God was born out of disillusionment with the Catholic Church. Its founders, Credonia Morinde, a former barmaid, and Joseph Kibwetere, a defrocked Catholic, preached strict obedience to the Ten Commandments. No lies, no theft, no sex, no soap even, since cleanliness was considered vanity. Above all, no questioning of authority. They warned of the end of the world, declaring that doomsday would arrive on January 1st, 2000. Followers gave away possessions, sold their land, and donated wealth to the cult's leaders, preparing to meet God. When the year 2000 dawned and the world did not end, why didn't the followers abandon the movement? Why did they instead cling even tighter to their faith? As the date passed without apocalypse, pressure mounted. Followers grew restless, some demanded their donations back, but the leaders responded with greater fervor. The world had not ended, they insisted, because God had delayed judgment to give humanity one last chance. Those who doubted were branded traitors. Soon the cult's teachings turned darker. The leaders warned that catastrophe was still imminent. Salvation would only come to the faithful, and only through absolute obedience. March 2000. The leaders announced a final great feast. Dozens of goats and cows were slaughtered. Barrels of banana beer prepared. Followers from across the country gathered at the Kanungu compound. To them, it was not a celebration. It was a preparation. What exactly did the leaders plan for that gathering? Was it to be a mass suicide and ascension to heaven, or a massacre hidden behind locked doors? On March 17th, the followers filled the church, walls painted with apocalyptic slogans. The world is ending. Do not delay. Hymns rang out. Then, an explosion. The building erupted in fire. Flames trapped hundreds inside. Authorities arriving later discovered evidence of deliberate planning. Doors nailed shut, windows barred. This was no accident. In the days that followed, investigators uncovered even more horror. Mass graves across Uganda, holding hundreds of bodies, many poisoned, strangled, or stabbed. The death toll climbed past 700. To this day, no one knows the full truth. Did the victims believe they were ascending to heaven? Or were they murdered to silence dissent, to cover up the fraud of a failed prophecy? The movement for the restoration of the Ten Commandments of God left behind nothing but ashes and questions. One of the largest cult deaths in modern history did not happen in America or Europe, but in a rural corner of Uganda. A chilling reminder that faith twisted into fanaticism can ignite disaster anywhere. In Kanungu, the church walls are gone, but the echoes of that day, the screams, the smoke, the silence, linger still.